right, so now I want to use a hardware synth bass. So I'm going to pause this for a second and then we're going to plug that in. Okay, so now we're going to hook up a hardware synth, this bass synth right here. So we got to load a MIDI track. I always keep these in ticks because ticks is like a musical value versus samples, which is more of a time value. So ticks is like, you know, the super subdivision of a quarter note or eighth note or whatever. All right, so let's load up this MIDI track. And then we've got to assign it to the output. Okay, so this is going to go out Unitor port 1, I believe. Let's just see. Yep, see, we're getting the green light up there when I'm hitting the keys. It's a good sign. All right, so now we need to bring the audio back in on an audio track. And that is coming up on input 2, I believe. Let's just hear it. I actually have my MIDI keyboard configured to change the patches. I'm getting a little latency, so we're going to lower the hardware buffer size, try 256, see if that's working for us. And the signal's a little low here, so I want to actually run it through my Neve preamp. I'm going to label this sub bass. All right, so that's kind of the part I want. So I'm going to lay down the MIDI first. First, I'll loop myself some extra drums so I can just play along. And we'll name this bass MIDI. Here we go. All right, that's basically it. We'll quantize that, option 0. Trim this up. Hear how it sounds. Pretty solid. So we're gonna record that in as audio now. because basically the MIDI here is still feeding the analog hardware unit, and we're listening on input. But if we walk away, and also since this is a collaboration session, we've got to record it in as audio. The level's just a little low on that, so I want to run it through a preamp to get some more gain. All right, I put some compression and EQ on it with my Avalon preamp to beef it up a little. So now we'll hit record and record that in. The level's still not where I want to see it. Let me turn it up a little bit. Basically, I want the level to be in the high, like between 15 and 5 with no peaks. And this is a pretty steady sound, so we don't really have to worry about peaks. And either way, my converters will limit it on the way in. With the Apogee Rosetta soft limit feature, but that's specific for these converters. I don't recommend doing that on just anything. But anyway, so that seems to be a pretty good level. So now we'll actually record it in. And when I'm doing this, I like to record multiple loops so you can cut it exactly the way you want. So I have a little lead in before the loop starts, and then a little tail off after. So I always record at least 3 loops. See, when we zoom in here, you can see there's still a little latency because we're not hitting right on the one. And then on the other side, it's the same thing. So I'm actually going to delete these other regions and clean that up. So what we can do is zoom right in, and then we'll go to slip mode. It's F2, and then click right on that, right where the actual sound starts, and we're going to trim that off. And then we'll just bring that right up to the beginning. Put it back on grid mode, F4. And I'll go to the end and I'll drag the region out. I could consolidate it, but trying to save disk space always. So I'll just drag it out because we already have this clip. And then we can reduplicate that for our 16 bar loop. And now let's take it off record mode and see what the recorded audio only sounds like. That's pretty subby.